What happens when a studio puts out a movie that absolutely nobody asked for? Hint, it's not good news. I'm Adam, this is Does It Hold Up? Box Office Edition, where every Tuesday we go over what were the top 10 movies at the box office this past weekend. We also check in on a couple charts like what are the 10 biggest grossing movies of 2024 so far, and we flash back to a movie from the past to see how well it did in theaters. But as always, we start with what were the top 10 movies at the box office domestically this past weekend, so let's go ahead and start there. In first place is Deadpool and Wolverine in its 5th week, jumping back into the top spot here with another 18.3 million, just a 39% drop from week 4 to week 5, and it's made a whopping $577.2 million domestically, trailing behind another movie we're going to see later in this top 10, and I also have 2 brand new charts for the show to compare these 2 movies. In second place is Alien Romulus in its 2nd week with another 16.3 million, but a really big drop of 61%. Probably not a drop that anybody was expecting. Critics were really liking this movie. Audiences were really enjoying it, saying it probably is the best Alien movie since the first 2, but some reason nobody saw it this 2nd weekend. It didn't open that well. I mean, it opened okay at 41 million, but to drop 61% without having an opening in the 70 to 80 million range is probably not what people were expecting for this movie, so it's definitely surprising. It has made $72 million so far domestically, so it will cross that 100 million. It will be all right in the long run. It's just a surprising number right now. In third place is It Ends With Us in its 3rd week with another 11.6 million, a 51% drop. Back-to-back 50-ish% drops in its 2nd and 3rd week, so it's doing all right. It's crossed $100 million because it's at 120.6. Blink Twice is new to the chart here. In 4th place with $7.3 million, this Channing Tatum starring movie was kind of intriguing in the previews. It's something that I might have been interested in, but I don't think the movie overall is really living up to what people were expecting. In 5th place is another new movie to the chart. It is The Forge with 6.6 million. I don't know much about this movie. It's one of those movies that really speaks to the Christian audience out there. We know those movies can open up pretty well, hold on for maybe a week, but they do disappear pretty quickly, so I don't expect to talk about this one too much. In 6th place is Twisters in its 6th week with another $6.1 million, just all the 6s here. 39% drop from the previous week, and it's just around $250 million, which is way more than I probably ever expected this movie to make when I first knew it was coming out. In 7th place, in its 2nd week on these charts, but not its 2nd week in theaters, is Coraline, the 3D re-release, the remastering and re-release of 2009's Coraline. It made another $5 million, only a 49% drop. But this re-release actually helped the movie quite a bit. Back when it was first released, it hovered around $87 million, but over the last 2 weeks that it's been in theaters again, it has now helped it cross that $100 million mark. It's just under $107 million domestically. In 8th place, new to the list, is the movie I referenced in the opening. It's The Crow, starring Bill Skarsgård. This is a movie that I can tell you absolutely no one asked for. No one sat around and said, hey, you want to know what they did to the Joker with Jared Leto? Why don't we do that with another beloved character, The Crow, but somehow make it even worse? Brandon Lee is The Crow. That first movie from 1994 is an iconic movie. It's a cult classic. Everybody absolutely loves it. Nobody wanted it to be remade, and they are proving that by not showing up to see this movie because it opened up in 8th place and it opened up with only $4.6 million. That is sad. I hope studios take a lesson from this. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. In 9th place, in its 8th week, is Despicable Me 4 with another $4.2 million, a 32% drop, and it's just around $350 million. That is way more than I ever thought the 4th Despicable Me movie could and should make. In 10th place, rounding out this week's top 10, is Inside Out 2 in its 11th week with another $2 million, a 41% drop, but it's made $646 million domestically and a ton more worldwide. So everybody related to that movie is very happy right now. And that's the movie I was referencing early as well. I have 2 new charts to the show this week that are gonna compare Deadpool and Wolverine and Inside Out 2 as the 2 biggest movies here in 2024. But before we get to those, let's go ahead and take a look at what movies fell out of the top 10 this weekend. After just 1 week, Stree 2 falls out. After 2 miserable weeks, Borderlands falls out of the top 10. Probably one of the biggest failures of not just this year, but maybe the past decade? Let me know in the comments below if you think that's true. And after 3 weeks, M. Night Shyamalan's Trap falls out of the top 10, which is a little disappointing. I thought the movie could kind of have some legs here, make a little bit more money than this, but you know, oh well. People aren't really into his movies anymore. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weekend to weekend comparison chart. Every single week, we take a look at how well 2024 is stacking up to the same weekend back in 2023, because we don't know where we're going if we don't know where we've been. How well is 2024 doing? Well, after a little run here of either being above 2023 or right even with it, we drop back to right even with it. Last year, this same weekend made $90.8 million total across all movies, led by the opening, the $17 million opening of Gran Turismo. Yes, that movie that everybody immediately forgot after it came out. This past weekend, Deadpool and Wolverine led the way in its 5th week with more money than what Gran Turismo opened to. Think about that. It's kind of sad. Quite a bit for Gran Turismo. But it led the way to $89.2 million. So we are about $1.7 million, $1.6 million off. That's pretty much neck and neck in the movie world. So that's a good sign. The only problem is we started the beginning of the year so much lower here in 2024 versus 2023. So we actually have to spend the rest of the year being above 2023 if the studios and the theaters all expect to make even the same amount of money as 2023. Okay, let's talk about Deadpool, Wolverine, and Inside Out 2. These are the 2 biggest movies of 2024, and they couldn't be polar opposites if they tried. One movie is definitely for adults, one movie is definitely geared towards kids, live action, animated. But the crazy thing is, they both come from the same studio, so no matter who wins in the long run, I'm pretty sure Disney is going to be ecstatic either way. But I wanted to take a look at which movie will end up being the #1 movie of 2024, because I don't see any other movies coming out this year that are gonna surpass either one of these, but which one will take the top of the chart. And the only way to do that is to look at how they've been running so far, day to day and week to week. So this first chart we're going to look at is the day-to-day comparison between those 2 movies. As you can see, Inside Out is the blue line, where Deadpool and Wolverine is the red line. Tried to do the blue of Joy's hair, but her hair is a weird color, so did the best I could, and then obviously red for Deadpool's outfit. We just hit the 31-day mark for Deadpool and Wolverine, so looking at the chart, it's the first 31 days for both movies. And you can see at the beginning, Deadpool and Wolverine was way out in front during that opening weekend. But then Inside Out 2 started to make more money per day until it evened out. But if you go down the line all the way from day 6 through to the end, Deadpool and Wolverine only beat Inside Out 2 twice in that run. A few times they've pretty much been neck and neck, but it's mostly Inside Out 2 day to day making more money. Which is kind of crazy to think about when you're like, Deadpool and Wolverine has made so much so far, and it's only been out half the time. It's about $100 million, $70 million behind Inside Out 2, and it's been out a lot less, 5 weeks versus 11 weeks, half the time. And yet Inside Out 2 is pacing a little ahead of it. But let's go ahead and take a look at how these movies were stacking up to each other comparatively week to week. Deadpool and Wolverine has been out technically for 4 weeks. I know it says week 5 because that's the weekends. It's been out for a 5th weekend, but only 4 weeks total. And as you can see, Deadpool and Wolverine started way above Inside Out 2. But as we reach that 4th week, they're really coming neck and neck. They're only separated by $6 million through that 31 days. $577 million to $571 million for Inside Out 2. But Inside Out 2 is obviously still in the top 10, making not a ton of money, but enough money to keep it ahead of a lot of other movies. Can Deadpool and Wolverine, in its 11th week, still be in the top 10? There's not a lot of movies coming out that I personally see being able to kind of knock it off, but at the same time, you never know. Anything could honestly happen. But it's interesting to see how well these are doing against each other. Right now, it looks like Deadpool and Wolverine should be the #1 movie of the year as long as it keeps pace with what it's currently doing. If it slows down even the slightest bit, Inside Out 2 will overtake it and stay the #1 movie. Speaking of the #1 movie of 2024, the next chart we're going to look at is the top 10 movies of 2024, and Inside Out 2 is #1 with that $646.2 million. Deadpool 3, Deadpool and Wolverine, is in second place with that $577 million. Despicable Me 4 in third, Dune Part 2 in fourth, Twisters in fifth. Can Twisters catch Dune Part 2? I don't think it has another 40 million, 35 million in it, but I've been surprised before, so it's very interesting to watch. Godzilla Kong is in sixth place with 196 million, and here is a little bit of a challenge happening. I talked about this last week. Kung Fu Panda 4 is in seventh place with 193,590,000. Bad Boys Ride or Die is at 193,531,000 in eighth place, but they are still letting it play in a very small number of theaters because I do think they are trying to get ahead of Kung Fu Panda 4. Is that a victory of any kind to take over the seventh spot? No, but it could be a moral victory to just say that you beat one massive family-friendly franchise. Try to say that 10 times fast. So it's going to be very interesting to watch if it can overtake it. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is in ninth, and A Quiet Place Day 1 rounds out the top 10. There has been no change on this chart. Now this is the part of the show where I say goodbye to all of those charts from this past weekend and the movies that are currently in theaters, and hello to a movie from the past. It's flashback time. We're going to look at a movie from many years ago to see how well it did in theaters. Did it make the studio money, or did it lose them a whole bunch? We are only looking at theatrical runs. We are not looking at ancillary markets like toys, video games, comic books, anything like that. Just how much money it made while it was in theaters. And we are going all the way back to May 1994 to talk about the one and only The Crow. The movie that shouldn't have been remade. I love you, Bill Skarsgård, but no. Back in 1994, The Crow hit theaters and it was mildly successful, but it became a massive cult classic afterwards. Did that translate to money for the theater? Let's find out. Domestic week 1 for The Crow, it only made $16 million. Studio got 60% of that, so about $9.5 million. Domestic week 2, it made another $10 million. Studios got 55%, so about $5.5 million. Domestic week 3 plus, it finished out its entire run with another $24.4 million. Studios kept 50% of that, so $12.2 million. Internationally, there are many conflicting reports, including Wikipedia saying that it made another $44 million overseas. I couldn't find anything corroborating that claim. I couldn't find any actual evidence of that. The only evidence I could find is that internationally it made $689,000. Studios kept 40% of that, so only $275,000. There was no release in China. The budget for the movie was $20 million. It had a pretty big marketing campaign, or at least it started with a pretty big marketing campaign until the rumors, which turned out to be true, started circulating of what happened to Brandon Lee while filming the movie, which sadly was maybe a bigger marketing ploy than anything they had planned. Once that story started spreading around, people wanted to see the movie in which an actor lost his life. If that's not morbid, I don't know what is. But did it help the movie? Not so much. I gave it a marketing budget of $15 million, and that might be just a little bit generous. I think it actually spent a little bit more. The movie grossed a total of $51.3 million. It netted, after the theaters took their cut, $27.7 million. If we minus the $15 million for marketing and the $20 million for the budget on the movie, it looks like The Crow lost the studio an estimated $7.3 million. But I can tell you right now, I don't think they cared that much because they got it all back in DVD, VHS, Blu-ray sales, and tie-ins and all that other stuff because everybody loves The Crow. Just sad to think that without the passing of an actor in his prime, this movie would have lost much more money than that. It took something of that degree to get people in theaters to check out this movie. And that's why it probably shouldn't have been remade here in 2024. People are still wildly connected to this 1994 version of the movie. All right, that's it for me this week on Box Office Edition. Does it hold up? Did this weekend hold up? Let me know in the comments below what you think about how 2024 is doing against 2023 and what you kind of foresee for the rest of the year, and what movies are you watching? I'll be back again later this week with another video, and I'll be back next Tuesday with another box office roundup. Until then, just remember to be good to yourself, be kind to others, and keep watching movies.